See how long that lasts. And I don't see the live feed there, of course. Oh, there we are. All right, I don't like to share it too many places because then they say I'm spamming them.
Yeah.
All right, live here. We'll just hop right to it, Brian. I didn't even do anything formal and say I have a guest today. We're just like right on live, just right in this moment, and had some technical difficulties getting on. I'm like, is there a full moon today? It must be the energy in the air and all the chaos and craziness that's happening right now. I spent about 6 hours up at the Capitol yesterday for a hearing that the Conservative Caucus put together. Shout out to the Conservative Caucus for putting that hearing together. A lot of people came out and spoke about there were teachers, there were nurses, there was a musician, there was different types of workers, IT workers. There was a guy that worked for, he built like oxygen tanks and stuff, and all of these people do not want the mandate. And it was very touching testimony. So, I call it mandate madness. Oh my God, people are reaching out left and right, asking for help, asking for information. So I appreciate you coming on with me to talk about We The Patriots USA, the lawsuits that you got going on, and maybe ideas about how do we combat these mandates that we are seeing from the federal level. And here in the state of Connecticut, I'd like to add the governor gave a caveat to state people here in the state of Connecticut where he's going to allow them to get testing, whereas the Fed has said you can't opt to be tested. You'll have to pay for that out of pocket, which is something I recently learned today, actually.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. Thanks for having me, Jay. I'm glad we got all the bugs worked out. It's just absolutely insane what's happening at the state level and the federal level. And there's a lot of things that we're doing to fight back, but unfortunately, our biggest obstacle right now, and I hate to lead with this, but I'm gonna lead with it. I'm gonna close with it because it's the most important thing that we need is funding. We have attorneys at the ready to file these lawsuits standing by. We have plaintiffs who say, we're ready, we'll sign our names, let's go. The one thing I don't have is money to pay them. We have certain donors that have stepped up, a few that have been generous, that have allowed us to do things like file the New York healthcare workers lawsuit that we were able to fully fund. But that money goes quick, that you drop. People don't realize, but you can drop 25, 50,000 on one lawsuit, and then that's like months worth of donations right there that's gone, and then you have to start all over again, which is why we've been so adamant about our Commit to 10 campaign. So we launched something called the Commit to 10 campaign it must be about 2 months, month and a half ago now. And what we're doing is we're asking everybody to please commit to at least $10 a month and tell at least 10 people to do the same. And if we had thousands and thousands of people doing that across the country, I mean, think about it. How many people do you think oppose these mandates, these vaccine mandates right now? How many?
I'd say a lot of people.
Out of 330 million that we have in our country, maybe more than that, how many do you think oppose it?
I think we're divided. I think it's half and half. That's really
Half
what
and
I
half.
think.
So if you're talking about, 160 or 155 million people, okay, somewhere along those lines, maybe more, 100. I don't know exactly. Let's say it's not half. Let's say it's even just 100 million people, or let's say it's even 50 million people. Let's be really conservative in our estimate. Let's say it's just 50 million people across the United States that oppose this. If 50 million people gave $10 a month, You know how much money that would be? You're talking $500 million a month. I mean, we don't need that. But if I even got 10,000, let's be real here. We're not getting 50 million. 10,000 people out of all those millions who are opposed to this. 10,000 to give $10 a month, that would be $100,000 a month. That could be 2, 3, 4 lawsuits a month that we could be filing against these major lawsuits against state governments, against the federal government. That's what it's going to take. I mean, people need to put their money where their mouth is, and I know maybe that's not what you wanted to hear when you asked that question, but that's the reality of it. That's the only way this is getting done. This isn't getting done just by us shouting in the streets, complaining on Facebook, complaining on Twitter, complaining on Telegram, whatever platform you want to choose. That's not getting this done. The only thing that's going to stop them now is the courts. That's our only recourse. Besides what some people are advocating for, which I won't, which is taking to the streets and getting violent. I won't do that.
Never advocate for violence. I never advocate for that because we can move mountains in other ways without violence. Violence is not our friend.
Right. It's never been the answer. It's not the answer now, which is why we're taking to the courts. That's the only recourse because people don't have faith in the elections, and I don't blame them, quite frankly.
Yeah, seriously.
Okay? They don't have faith in the elections. Every 2 years, every 4 years, you get the same result, and now with all this evidence of rampant fraud, so if you're not going to win through the elections, your elected representatives won't listen to you, your school boards won't listen to you, you're obviously not going to do anything crazy and, like you said, violent. The only option that's left is court. I'm sorry, people, that is it. That is it, because you can write as many letters as you want to school board members and to senators and representatives. If your party, if you don't have people in your legislature that are strong advocates for freedom and individual liberties, they're going to just ignore you. I don't care if 10,000 of you gather outside their offices, outside the Capitol buildings. They're not going to, 50,000. They're not listening. They're not listening. The only people they're going to listen to are men and women in black robes who have the authority to point the finger and say, stop, it's illegal, back down now. They're the only ones that have the authority to do it. You and I don't have the authority. We have the power as the people, but one of our recourse is through the courts. You say, oh, what about the Constitution? Doesn't that mean we have all the power? Yes, but remember, there's also Article 3 powers, which are vested in the courts in the United States Constitution. The courts were granted power by we, the people. We granted the courts the power to be a check and balance on the other two branches of government. The other two branches of government clearly have failed us. Ned Lamont has failed us. Joe Biden has failed us. The Congress has failed us. The state of Connecticut legislature has failed us. I'm glad people came out yesterday for that hearing, but it was a waste of time. And I'm going to get flack for saying that, but I'm going to say it anyway. And the reason it was a waste of time is because you have the only people that were up here that you were preaching to the choir. I didn't see one Democrat in that room. And they're the ones that hold all the power. They hold all the cards. The conservative caucus can stamp their feet all they want. They can yell and scream. They have no power. They don't have the votes. There's a supermajority of Democrats in the Connecticut legislature. And they hold all the power. The only way we are going to take this back is by either getting them out of office at the polls or by winning in court. Those are the only two ways. And the people that came there, one thing I did think was very valuable, though, is you did have people coming out that I had never seen before. People that aren't, people that don't typically show up. They're not the same crowd showing up to our rallies every year. It was ordinary people that maybe have never been active before, and now they're showing up. That did give me some hope for the future. That's one thing that I do think was valuable, but the reason I say it's a waste of time is, practically speaking, it's not going to move the needle. And as I predicted, I said all the press is going to take away from this is that people aren't wearing masks. When I saw it, I said that's all they're going to say. Every headline I saw from the Connecticut Democrats' Twitter, from the Hartford Courant, CT Mirror, unmasked anti-vaxxers, unmasked. That's all they wanted to talk about. They didn't want to talk about anything about vaccine mandates, and that's all the press picked up on too. So you didn't get a media boost. Matt Ritter and Bob Duff and Looney, they're not listening to you. So you got nothing politically. You got nothing in the press. And, what did it do? It actually made us look bad in some ways, because now they're saying we're dangerous, we're anti-vaxxers, we're breaking capital policy.
Oh, wait a minute. I have to disagree there because, they're always going to paint a picture. I agree with that. And I think their masks are BS and the science doesn't back it. And I know the media is just totally in bed with all this. I caught the media actually taking a picture of some of the public sitting there. And for me being there, being able to film that, and I got some great testimony, although my audio is always crappy, so I didn't get everybody's testimony because some of the audio was too low. But I got some great testimonies from people who've never testified about vaccines ever. And though the media can spin this all they want, there's a retraction that the day, after I hang up with you, I'm going to be writing and calling the day. There is a retraction that they need to make because they are actually reporting misinformation, saying that, Fishbein and France were wrong, Mike France were wrong about the vaccine being, whether it was approved or not approved. And the truth of the matter is it's a new vaccine that's approved. That wasn't the one that people have been using. It's the one they released in Europe. So yes, I agree with you. The media is really bad. I do think that, we are working up, the conservative caucus does not have any power right now. Yes, I agree with that too. But I do think people coming out to testify and making that a part of the public record isn't totally in vain. And I think that the people that did show up gave very moving testimony that is now part of the public record, that it bothers them because they can't stop talking about it. Don't listen to those people. Don't listen to those people. Because this isn't the typical crowd they're used to seeing. They're used to seeing moms.
Well, true, but this wasn't an official hearing. This wasn't a legislative proceeding, so it's not going in any official record, unfortunately. It's not something that we can actually use. Here's the thing. Why can't we force, as the people, why can't we force Matt Ritter, Looney, Duff, Elliott, Linehan, all those people, force them into a room and say, you have to listen to us. You can't ignore our emails anymore. You can't ignore our phone calls. We're having this hearing. It's going to be a joint hearing, Republicans, Democrats. You're all showing up. You have to show up. There needs to be a mechanism written into the statute. We need to change this law. We need to change the law in Connecticut to make it so there are certain times where the people can call by whatever you want to do, by petition, by popular acclaim. People have the right to call a hearing if there's sufficient support, and force the legislators to listen to them. They have to be accountable to us. Right now, they were sitting back. I mean, what killed me about it is as I'm watching some of it, I'm saying, they're just sitting back in their houses. They're not even in their offices, probably. The legislature's not in session. They're sitting back and they're just laughing at this. They're laughing because they're not listening to any of it. Actually, most of them probably weren't even watching it. They could care less. And they're just going to keep on doing what they're doing regardless of what we say. So we need to be able to hold them accountable. It needs to stop being an echo chamber. But I didn't come on to talk about the Connecticut State Legislature. I'm disgusted with them. I don't really want to waste any more breath or energy on them because I think they're a waste of time and a waste of space right now. I'm sorry. I'm upset. We don't have a true legislative branch. We have leaders that are ruling by fiat. They're ruling by their own will, unilaterally, without listening to the people. That's what the ruling party is doing in Connecticut right now, and that's just me speaking personally, not on behalf of my organization, just to make that clear. But here's the thing. We're doing a lot of exciting things, though. We are fighting back. We are helping people get these exemptions from work, from school. We've had some huge successes in our with our cases, as we discussed this weekend when you had Kendall Cody on, and you actually interviewed her, and thank you so much for helping this weekend once again, Jay. We really, really appreciate you stepping in as a guest host for our Vaccine Safety Awareness Marathon. It was a great event, but we've helped other people. We've been getting a lot of calls from employees, military service members, healthcare workers, teachers, police officers, a lot of police officers all over the country, because remember, we are a national nonprofit, so we have people reaching out to us from coast to coast, okay, and sometimes beyond. I had someone from Canada a couple weeks ago. I said, I can't help you, sorry. Everybody needs help, and we're all overwhelmed. There are only a handful of attorneys doing this across the country. There's a few organizations, and I know in our small communities, it seems like a lot because we see those organizations all the time. But if you look at that in the scheme of things, and you just take a step back, like we said, hundreds of millions of people in this country that need, and maybe at least 100 million, 50 million, 75 million that need help. There's just not enough people to do the work, so we need to bring more people aboard. We need to be able to pay people, and that's what we want to do. So we are getting ready to file some very, very interesting lawsuits in addition to what we've already filed. So I told you about the one Well, let me give you some updates.
Yeah, please do, because I want to hear the good news about this.
All right.
Because the legislature is lame duck. I agree with you on that one. Tell us the good news. What people can do.
So the good news is, well, again, you can always support us. We always need volunteers as well. But the biggest thing, if you come to volunteer, just be prepared. You're being put on a fundraising team, because it all comes back to money. And we'll talk about money, because with these testing centers in Connecticut, if you want to get back to Connecticut, there's a lot of money being funneled right back to the governor's mansion. And you know that. You've exposed that. You've talked about that. There was another expose today that I read, and I actually shared it with you. If you remember, I texted to you very, very early this morning. So these things are being exposed about this, but we have our religious exemption lawsuit against the state. That is still ongoing. There's a hearing this month. I want to say it's the 14th. I got to double check. Not this month, excuse me. Next month. I'm thinking we're already in October. Well, we're almost in October, believe it or not. Next month, I want to say it's the 14th. Double check my calendar, but I'll be blasting it once I have a place where people can watch and the exact time confirmed. But I think it's the 14th of October, a hearing in the religious exemption lawsuit that we filed against the repeal of the religious exemption in Connecticut. We filed a lawsuit against the masks. There hasn't been a lot of traction. People have been very kind of annoyed by that and frustrated by that, and I get it. But we're at the mercy of the appellate court. We filed our appeal after that was dismissed in May. We've been trying. We've tried many times in the past to get it directly transferred to the Supreme Court. That hasn't been successful. It's pending at the appellate court, but it's up to them when they want to schedule it on their docket. I don't have the authority to call up the appellate court and say, you have to hear this next week. There's nothing we can do. So people keep getting frustrated. A lot of people have donated, and we appreciate it very much, but we can't argue the appeal until they tell us we're allowed to. Unfortunately, we're at their mercy. So I don't have any news on that front, but that's going to become a very important case with the expected, and I fully expect it, unfortunately, to go through, the extension of Lamont's emergency powers. That case is going to be very, very important, because at the heart of that case, if you remember, morphed into a discussion about masks being harmful for kids, not effective, and then morphed into, well, they don't even have the authority to do this because Lamont has usurped power. The legislature unconstitutionally granted it to him. So at the heart of that case is whether these emergency powers are constitutional, and whether the legislature has the authority to just keep granting over and over and over again extensions, which is exactly what we're dealing with right now. That's at the top of everybody's mind with these mandates, that there shouldn't be any more extensions of emergency powers. So we have a case already in court ready to argue that. It's not like we have to file a new lawsuit against the extension of the emergency powers. You don't have to do that, people. That's our case. Our school mask lawsuit concerns that. If we win in our school mask lawsuit appeal, it could effectively stop his emergency powers for everything, not just for masks. Because we're addressing it, we decided to take a broader approach when we saw things moving away from just the mask science to look at, well, he shouldn't be able to do any of this stuff, including masks in schools, but he shouldn't be able to do any of this stuff right now. So that's an important case. Stay tuned. You can look on our website for updates. The mask lawsuit is Connecticut Freedom Alliance, so ConnecticutFreedomAlliance.org, but all of the other litigation, we've kind of centralized most of our litigation efforts to our nonprofit, which is We The Patriots USA, and you can find that at WeThePatriotsUSA.org, and that's also where you can donate, WeThePatriotsUSA.org. And then we have another lawsuit. If you saw the lawsuit against, I mentioned the New York healthcare workers, a temporary restraining order was granted in that case. I don't know. Did you hear about that, Jay?
Yes, I did. That was great news coming out of New York. So there was a TRO, which is the temporary restraining order for healthcare workers in the state of New York, which was pretty huge. And they recently had their head of the public health, I believe Zucker is his name, step down. Not like that's any great win, but thought that was interesting. But yeah, that was a good case. And I hope that continues to happen. It's really, I think it's such tyranny to put this on people for their livelihoods. And we talked about this for years as we were fighting for our children, and how this was coming for adults. So to be living through it at this scale, and having people reach out, like, what are we gonna do? We gotta sue them. I guess that's what you're saying, Brian, right? We gotta take them to court, and when people reach out to me, they're looking for help, right? So what is it exact? So the organization We The Patriots USA is combating these and has lots of lawsuits going on. So if somebody has a case that they want to present to you or looking for help, what is the recourse that they have if I send them over to you guys? What can they expect?
Well, I mean, right now, to be perfectly honest, we are very, very overwhelmed. So I can't, everybody be patient. I can't respond to everybody immediately. It's going to often take a little while. It's going to often take, sometimes it could take up to a week or more for me to get back to you, because when you have thousands of requests, and remember, we're all volunteers. You know, we all have other jobs. This is not, we're not able to do this 8, 10 hours, 12 hours a day, which is what's really amazing. That makes it all the more amazing that we've done as much as we have, because this has just been in our spare time, snatched away from our families, a few $1,000s here, a few $1,000s there to rub together. We don't have some huge litigation fund. We don't have some huge paid staff, and yet we're servicing people all over the country. We have a case against the University of Colorado. Okay, the University of Colorado, we have 2 cases, possibly 3, but 2 cases, one against the dental school, one against the medical school, where they've been denied religious exemptions. Now, the woman who's a dental student that's been denied is an immigrant from Venezuela. She's here on a student visa, and if she gets kicked out of school over this, she's going back to Venezuela. Okay? So, and see, people think, oh, you know, people get you know, a lot of times people don't realize what's at stake. Oh, big deal. So you're gonna you can go find another career. Go to another school. Well, for this woman, it's literally her ability to stay in the United States is resting on this. She's here. I'm sorry. She's here on a student visa. She's here perfectly legally. Okay, she's here on a student visa to study dentistry. And just because of her religious beliefs, they're going to kick her out of not only school, but kick her out of this country. We appealed with the demand letter to the University of Colorado. They just shut us down. They don't care. Fine, we'll go ahead to litigation. Same thing with a medical student. We had a medical student that he actually had a medical exemption and a religious exemption. With the medical exemption, he spoke to somebody about it and said, look, I have the doctor's note, I have the medical, look, I have health reasons, I have clear health reasons. They said, it's not about the science, it's about policy. Okay, this is a medical school saying it's not about science. Okay, and then for his religious exemption, again, they said, well, it's not part of a comprehensive system of beliefs. They judged his beliefs. Those are just your personal beliefs. It's not part of a comprehensive system. Well, personal beliefs, newsflash, University of Colorado, personal beliefs are protected under the Constitution. You don't have to show that you're part of some organized religion that's part of a larger system of religious beliefs. You can have your own personal religious belief, your own personal religion that you practice in your home. That is protected under the First Amendment. Remember, since this is a public university, the First Amendment does apply. Okay, so they're in a lot of hot water over this. So we're taking them to court. We've given a substantial financial contribution to that lawsuit, and our lawyers. We have local counsel in Colorado that's taking that on. So we have that case. Other ones that I can't talk about yet because they're not official. Potential case we have already been involved in helping 2 students try to get a religious exemption at Creighton University in Omaha. They're Catholics. That's a Catholic university. And basically, you know, these Catholic universities now, they're just like, well, the Pope says it's okay. So, unfortunately,
This is such insanity.
These two brothers who attend Creighton University both got denied. They get kicked out. So we're going to bat for them. We're planning to file litigation against them. I can't mention their names yet. But all this is going to be released. We're going to do publicity about all this. We're going to do interviews with them. We're hopefully going to get them on TV like we did with Kendall, get them on Fox News. So we've got some really big cases come down the pike. And there's, again, a couple more that I can't. I mean, I've had everyone reach out to me from large companies, retailers, the world's largest retailer that you'll recognize if I say it. We've had employees from major entertainment companies, major airlines. I had a Major League Baseball team employee reach out to me a couple weeks ago. I mean, we're getting everyone large and small reaching out to us. Unfortunately, again, because we're just a scrappy group of volunteers and lawyers that is trying to take on the whole country, take this on the whole country, we're not going to be able to do it without funding. But The New York case, just going back full circle, that healthcare mandate case, I want to say, just to be clear, there were 3 different groups that filed against that, all right? There was us, We the Patriots USA. We filed in the Eastern District of New York. There was Liberty Counsel, which is another wonderful organization that's doing a lot of fights. They filed, I believe, also in the Eastern District of New York. And then we had a group called the St. Thomas More Society, which I admire their work very much as well. They filed in the Northern District of New York. Now, the Eastern District of New York, they denied our temporary restraining order application. Within an hour, we filed on a Sunday afternoon for an emergency injunction, temporary restraining order. Within an hour, on a Sunday, within less than an hour, it was denied.
Wow.
And this was like a 20-page long memo that we had attached to it with exhibits and everything. Less than an hour denied. No explanation, no reasoning, just denied. The following Tuesday, 2 days later, in the Northern District, they filed the same application, and not word for word, obviously, making the same kinds of arguments we did. And that judge, that federal judge, in the Northern District, decided to award it. So you see, you have 2 different federal judges. One's in the Eastern District, one's in the Northern District. They disagree with each other. That does happen all the time. So our case, we filed an immediate appeal to the Second Circuit. So people don't understand what circuit courts are. They're the intermediate appeal between the district court level and the Supreme Court of the United States. So if we lose at the Second Circuit, we would petition for emergency review at the Supreme Court of the United States. And we could actually get there within the next couple of weeks. The reason our case is not moot is because now the state of New York is likely to be appealing that granting of the temporary restraining order in the Northern District. So all 3 of us are going to find ourselves probably combined arguing together at the Second Circuit. So we're still right in the heart of this. Our case is still very important. We had 2 very brave nurses and another healthcare worker who stepped forward and put their names on this. Two at Syosset Hospital in Long Island, and another one in Syracuse at St. Joseph's Hospital in Syracuse. Very, very brave. They put their names on this filing along with We the Patriots as the lead plaintiff. And so that's a huge lawsuit. And if we end up winning that, and we're going to have to win at the Second Circuit. It's not over yet. Everybody says, oh, they got the temporary restraining order granted. Remember, a temporary restraining order, even if it sticks, is only temporary while the litigation plays out. All right? It's not a permanent injunction that you have to give them religious exemptions, because the whole reason we brought that lawsuit is the state of New York came out, the Department of Health, and said no religious exemptions allowed, only medical exemptions for healthcare workers. So we're like, wait, where in the Constitution does it say that religious liberty, religious freedom doesn't apply to healthcare workers? And where does it say that in Title VII either, which is the employment discrimination statute under federal law? And where does it say that in New York State discrimination law? I don't see in any of those laws an exception for healthcare workers, that if you're a healthcare worker, you don't get religious liberty, you don't get a religious accommodation in the workplace. None of those provisions say that. So we thought it was a slam dunk case. In my opinion, it should have been granted immediately. When we filed it, it was so obvious that this is unconstitutional. And definitely we showed there's 2 things you have to show to get an a temporary emergency injunction granted. You have to show that you have a high likelihood of success on the merits, which obviously, again, as I just explained it, I think it's a slam dunk. And you also you have to show that there would be irreparable harm if it weren't granted. Well, of course there's irreparable harm. These workers are being told they're going to lose their jobs on September 27th. And that's Monday. That's this coming Monday if they don't get the jab. So there's a big irreparable harm there. They're going to lose their livelihood. So to me, there's no reason that should have been granted. I can't think of any legal reason not to grant the temporary restraining order. It's just so obvious on its face. But so I think the judge up in upstate New York that granted that in the Northern District, I think he was spot on. So I'm sorry I rambled a little bit, but we've got a lot of cases going on. I didn't even tell you about all of it. There's some other really big things that I can't talk about right now that are cooking. We're just trying to get them finalized and get them signed. Until someone signs on the dotted line an engagement letter with an attorney and they're officially going to sign on to representation, I can't go around announcing their names and announcing that they have a case yet,
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, one of the questions that came in that I was curious about, and there's been a lot of debate about, and my understanding is with the unemployment, people have said, are they going to, they've heard that they're going to be denied unemployment if they refuse to get the jab. And interestingly, some of the testimony yesterday that I learned, because I didn't realize this, was that A lot of these people are putting on non-paid leave, just on a leave of absence without them being fired. So I'm guessing that's the slippery slope to not getting unemployment. I mean, can they deny somebody unemployment if they're fired? Can they really do that? I thought that was the whole point of unemployment.
You can if you're fired. So I have a background in unemployment law. Before I did civil rights law, I specialized in unemployment claims actually, and they can. So what it is if it's in the state of Connecticut, if you are found to have engaged in willful misconduct in the workplace, you do not qualify for unemployment. Now, it's going to be up to it's going to be up to an appeals referee or the Board of Review at the State Department of Labor to decide whether or not refusing a shot constitutes willful misconduct. I don't want to speak for them. I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of the people that work over there. I don't know what they're going to rule. I'm not involved with that anymore. That's not what I do anymore. So, but I know what the law is, and if it's found to be willful misconduct, and I will say, it comes down to whether the employer's directive was reasonable, whether you refused a reasonable directive of the employer. But I mean, if they have good cause, like a religious reason, I personally would think that should provide an exception. If they have good cause, like their religious freedom, they weren't just refusing to be insubordinate. I personally think they should qualify for it, but that's not up to me. That's why I can't really answer it. I haven't seen the decisions yet come out on this. I don't know if anyone's even contested it yet all the way up through the ranks of the Department of Labor to get a decision. It's a little too early, but I'm scared that they're going to deny people. They're going to say this is willful misconduct. It was a reasonable direct. I mean, here's the thing: the majority of people in the public, in this state especially, think that it's good. All right,
it's very depressing. That is very depressing. That is the case. I really have a hard time being in Connecticut right now, and it discourages me. I have to say that, and I'm sorry to be negative. I try to stay positive, but I'm disgusted. I'm so disgusted with the attitude of most of the public right now.
I'm seeing a lot of what I would characterize as hate speech towards people that just want choice. We're not anti-vaxxers. I'm not going to use that word. People that just want freedom of choice, that just want the option to be able to say, this is not for me, for whatever reason, whether it's you have a medical condition, whether it's your sincerely held religious beliefs, to say, I don't want this injected into my body. And personally, I think we should have, philosophical exemptions too in Connecticut. We should have just personal belief exemptions for people that just don't want something injected. I mean, since when did the government tell, or even an employer tell you have to get something injected into your body? Like, since when did that become a thing? Like, that was never a thing before. No. And you couldn't imagine it with regard to almost anything else. Can you imagine your employer coming up to you with a prescription for Xanax and saying you have to take this?
Well, that's a slippery slope. At what point you start to accept this, right? So, and then here, if I could say this too, which was when you read the FDA's approval letter to this company, I'm not even going to say its name, when you read the FDA approval letter, which everyone should, by the way, and you see that the 20% of the ingredients are redacted.
Yes.
It's redacted. That means that you don't know what you're injecting into your body. And to make matters even worse, I read through this approval letter, and it also mentions how they recognize that 12 to 30-year-olds are at a high risk for myocarditis, and there was discussion in studying lower doses from the 12 to 30-year-old range for myocarditis. Yet I just got something from my superintendent of schools that makes me infuriated beyond belief that they are bombarding these teenagers with this propaganda based, and you go and you read the actual literature, the science that we're even allowed to see because of this proprietary rights, is clearly saying that this is still being studied and tested. They're going to be studying the myocarditis stuff and how 12 to 17-year-olds react to it because they don't know. For their trials, they only went for 4 months. So how are we here? It seems to me if we can get into a court of law and we could have a case go and this all be presented that like what judge could ever deny like you can't do this and we need to put a stop to this right now. We need to put a freaking stop to this now.
Of course, absolutely, I agree with you, and especially when you look at, even by their numbers, let's assume their COVID death numbers are accurate, which they're not. But even if they were, the percentage of 12 to 30-year-olds that die from this is minuscule. I mean, it's hardly anyone, all right, in that range, unless it's someone who has severe comorbidities, immune problems, things like that. But I'm talking about healthy people in that age range who don't have any substantial comorbidities. It's negligible. I mean, it's such a small number. Obviously, any death is important. But when you see high numbers of myocarditis, why would you even suggest giving a lower dose? You shouldn't be giving it to them at all. You should be saying, since the death risk is so low in these persons, we shouldn't be giving it. And there's no proof that it's effective at preventing transmission. So don't give me that argument. Well, it's to protect the people around them who might be elderly and stuff. It doesn't work, people. It's not working. It's not preventing transmission. Look at the number of breakthrough cases. They're telling you they're primarily the unvaccinated. That's a lie. We have doctors and nurses on the inside of hospitals that are reporting to us right now. That is a lie, okay? That's the information I'm getting. I'm not on the inside of the hospital, so I'm not hearing this firsthand, but I'm hearing it from people who are saying, no, it is not true. It is not mostly unvaccinated people. In fact, I heard from someone just last week that was calling me and said she worked in a hospital, I believe, as a nurse, and she had every single patient that was in the COVID ICU was vaccinated except one.
Yeah.
Except one. So they had a full ICU. It's true. They do have high numbers of people who are sick, but they're almost all vaccinated people. Because this mass vaccination has created this so-called variant. It's not a variant. It's this high viral load. I mean, Pfizer. Oops. I said the
That's
company.
okay.
Putting out, pushing
the
this.
bots are coming for us now.
Yeah. Well, whatever. They're coming for us anyway. We've mentioned COVID and other buzzwords.
Yeah,
a few times,
I know.
Vaccine, even though we shouldn't even call it a vaccine. It's absolutely abhorrent what's going on right now. They've created the problem, okay? Man created the problem to begin with because this was created in a lab in China, right? This is a bioweapon, right? So man created the problem, and man creates the solution, which creates more problems, which isn't really a solution. It creates more problems so they can make more money and make more of us sick and kill more of us off, quite frankly, because you know as well as I do, there's a global depopulation agenda going on here, all right? I'm going to go, you want to call me full tinfoil hat now. People don't call me tinfoil hat so much anymore. I wonder why that is. They don't call me conspiracy theorist so much more. All those people that used to say that, I'm hearing crickets now from them. The people that told me, you're crazy, Brian. They will never, ever mandate this for work. There's no way there's going to be mass work mandates that you're not going to be able to get a job without getting the shot. Where are you? Where are you?
I know. They're cheering it on now. They're cheering it on.
You're crazy, Brian. There's no way they'll ever make it for entertainment or for restaurants. I've seen a lot of that. Go to New York City. Go to New York City and try to get into a restaurant without your papers.
This is insane. Here, somebody asked, I don't know if you can see this question up here, but this is a really important thing. So with SEMA, so they ask, please ask what law this SEMA nonsense may be violating. Well, my gosh, I mean, this...
They say no law. The state ethics opinion, according to according to what I read this morning in the paper. Now, I haven't seen the ethics opinion. They claim it's okay to have a no bid contract like this, and for her to have, for his wife, Governor Lamont's wife, to have a vested interest. Whether or not there's a direct financial benefit to her personal accounts, I don't know. I know that she sits on the advisory board for this hedge fund. Right?
No, it's her hedge fund. It's her hedge fund.
Right. So
it's her company.
I mean, she has a position though as a managing partner or whatever it is. But the point is, how much of that money goes directly into her pocket, I don't know. But come on, if it's a subsidiary, this SEMA4 is a subsidiary of her hedge fund, and her husband is the one pushing the mandates of testing. Where and these are state-run testing sites too, where they have this contract. I mean, they're getting all this money, this SEMA4 contract. I mean, I just don't see how it's not unethical. Now, listen, that's their opinion.
It's disgusting, the opinion, by the way.
In my opinion, it should be appealed and there should be a lawsuit filed. That's something else that should be done.
Could we do something like, seriously, I read through the opinion. Do you know that the main part of that opinion is they base it off of Bloomberg in New York when he was mayor, he got blind trust. So the idea is that all of her, and I also have FOIA'd him on Lamont's assets too. He has a 33-page, I forget the acronym for the name of the financial affidavit that he filled out that everybody's supposed to fill out.
The disclosure, financial
disclosure. It's all this pages and pages of basically, it doesn't go into details about what it is. But with the whole thing with the SEMA-4 and Annie Huntress Lamont, and then you go into Open Checkbook, and the state of Connecticut is paying this company $35 million as it's just before it's launched onto being a public company where it was valued at $3 billion. And so we don't even have the right to know what because of proprietary rights, we don't have the right to know how much each test is costing. That the state of Connecticut is actually contracting all the people that are being told to get the shot and they could opt to test. That is more than likely a SEMA-4 test, which, by the way, the FDA put out a letter of warning because the test that SEMA-4, aka Thermo Fisher Scientific Core Informatics, connected to Josh Gabal, the Department of Administrative Services, DAS for Connecticut, basically is like Connecticut's CEO.
DAS. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just like flabbergasted here because to me, this blind trust that says, oh, I don't know anything about SEMA-4, which she has actively worked to secure. Her company gave Core Informatics, which was swallowed up by Thermo Fisher Scientific, which is connected to SEMA-4, paid $17 million in funds to that company. And she and Josh Gabal developed a relationship at that point in the game where he now sits as a major player in all state affairs. This is insanely corrupted, and I cannot believe that we are sitting here, and this is part of my I'm so absolutely flabbergasted. And don't even get me started on Unite Us and Unite Connecticut and the Connecticut Hospital Association. Yep. Because I feel like we need to sue the bejesus out of them. How do we deal with a governor that operates in this level of corruption? The evidence is there. We have it. Tons of it.
Right. Here's the problem. Is for a civil suit anyway, you'd have to show that you're personally aggrieved. Like general taxpayer standing doesn't work in a court of law. So you say, well, I'm a taxpayer, and so this is my money. Well,
but what if you lose your job and you're threatening to lose your house because of these edicts?
Well, that's different because that would be, but that's not going to go after Lamont and what you're alleging here with the money trail. That's not going to go after any of that. That's going to be if you lose your job, that would be a lawsuit against your employer, not against Lamont. If your employer happens to be the state of Connecticut, then I guess that it's possible since he made the mandate. You could join Lamont as a mandate, but see, a lot of the problem is these private employers were doing this testing anyway. It's not like, it's because Ned Lamont came out and said that you should be testing. I mean, the testing mandates Lamont made were for state employees and for teachers. The mask mandates in schools we talked about. So you would, again, as a state employee, you could have standing against Lamont for that. But again, what you want exposed, I think, is the financial corruption that you're alleging here. Really, if there's that level of corruption, you're wading into criminal law territory, which means a prosecutor needs to bring it, not Brian or Jay.
Well, we have a Tom. We have nothing. We have
Tom's not the criminal prosecutor, though. The Attorney General's office does mostly civil stuff. So you would need if this is a federal crime, which is that's where you're leading, by the way. You're leading into felonies and federal crimes. That would be a U.S. district attorney. You need a prosecutor to take that on. So that would be a federal attorney. That would not be A.G. Tong. Okay. A.G. Tong, I don't know to what extent he's aware of this. I mean, you're probably going to assume he's aware of this, and to what extent there's other people that may be aware, but I'm not aware personally. I don't want to speak out of turn. I'm not aware personally. I don't have evidence that any particular individuals have committed crimes. I mean, I know you're saying it seems pretty black and white because the money's there, but we would need to prove that she took, for instance, with Annie and Ned, that they took personal possession of those funds. If we don't have any proof that it went into their pockets directly, see, it always has to be this direct. This is what gets me about the ethics laws. When we tried to expose Matt Ritter for his conflicts of interest and Liz Linehan, remember with the religious exemption? And they ignored us. And several of us called the state ethics office, right?
Yeah.
And they said, well,
it's insane.
And again, what we were told is it's not direct, though. It's not direct. There's no proof that he's taking direct possession of that money. Like, you don't have proof that it's going into his hands. It looks bad, yes, but there's no proof. And so things are allowed to look bad, I guess. To me, there shouldn't, I mean, if someone even has the appearance of impropriety like that, they should have to recuse themselves. They should not be allowed to do that. They should not be allowed to sit on any boards or anything, or any companies that are taking a financial benefit. Because if the company does well, she does well. Let's call it what it is. Obviously, if the company's profits increase by 300%, that's gonna, she's gonna get more money. I mean, in the end of the day, she may take the same salary, but if she owns it, if she owns the assets of that company, then that's going to benefit her.
It's insane. I mean, I've been on this for a while with them, and I'm almost to the point where, like, I just want to get the hell out of Connecticut. I don't know. I want to get the hell out of Connecticut. Let it sink to its abyss. I don't know. I hate to say that too.
A lot of people feel that way, and a lot of people have left. Some of our good friends have already left. We know that. It's hard for people to stay year after year after year fighting what seems to be a losing battle. But that's why we have to take it to court. We have to take it to federal court, because remember, federal judges are not, are separate from state judges. Remember, federal judges are appointed by the president. So you have judges in there that are still, Clinton appointees. You may have some from Bush Sr. You have definitely a lot of judges in there that are Bush Jr. appointees. And I'm not saying they're all great, and political doesn't matter. But I want to just make you aware. You have Obama appointees and you have Trump appointees. Actually, Trump appointed more than anyone. He appointed more judges in his 4 years than Obama did in 8. From my understanding, it was almost like 300 federal judges. So the federal judiciary, and he says he was appointing people who were, more liberty-minded, strict to the constitutionalists, originalists, textualists of the Constitution. As far as individual liberties, I mean. That's what he says these people are. So if the federal judiciary is loaded with people like that, then you should have some hope with these lawsuits. Remember, because it's not just people say, oh, well, I live in a liberal state. Well, first of all, judges aren't supposed to be going by politics anyway. I don't care what, letter they're affiliated with. They're not supposed to be going by politics, okay? And I believe, although we're all human and we all have our biases, that there are still a lot of good judges out there that are going to look at the facts and the law, the evidence and the law, okay, and are going to make decisions. I still have faith in the judicial system. If I did not, I would quit my profession. I've said that many times on the air. The moment I lose faith, the moment I start believing that this isn't working anymore, or there's mass corruption or something, I'll just leave. And I know that people saying, oh, there is, but you don't have any proof. Okay, just because a judge renders a decision that you don't like, you don't have any proof of corruption. Okay, you can say that all you want, but show me the proof. Show me the secret recording of some backroom deal that was made. You don't have it. So until you have it, you can't allege corruption. You can suspect it, but I'm not going to go out and make those kind of allegations, certainly not as an attorney, but even as a regular individual, I'm not going to, even if I didn't, have a law license, I'm not going to go out making those kind of accusations, because I don't accuse people of things unless I have solid proof. And even then, you have to choose the right avenue, how you're going to pursue it, how you're going to remedy it if some wrong has been done. But the point is, we don't have proof of this. Just because we get a decision we don't like, we can't say it's all corrupt. And we get some decisions that we do like, okay? We got that decision from that judge in the Northern District, like I mentioned, that granted the temporary restraining order. We had another judge, I think the same day or the next day, that granted a temporary restraining order for the teachers in New York. That's unfortunately since been overturned by, I think, another judge. So again, you have these levels of appeals, and it keeps going. Unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot of time, so is something else you want me to address? Are there any other comments or questions coming in?
We do have a few. The Supreme Court watches over the Sixth Circuit. You want to comment on that?
They watch over all the circuit courts. So you have the U.S. district courts, and each state has several different, you have district courts, and then you have so that's like the trial court level. Then you have the main, appellate level, which is all the circuit courts. First, second, third, fourth. You have all the different circuit courts, and then you have the final level of appeal, which is the Supreme Court of the United States. But they only take a very small percentage of cases. They don't have to take every appeal. See, the circuit courts have to take your appeal. So if you lose, for instance, in the Second Circuit, which Connecticut is part of the Second Circuit, if you lose, they have to take it. They can't say, no, we're not going to hear this. They have to take the appeal if you lose your case. If you have a final decision and you lose, they have to take the appeal. The Supreme Court of the United States does not have to take it. That's the final level of appeal, but they only take a tiny percentage of cases. So, they've been taking more and more cases off of what's called the shadow docket, off of religious liberty cases, especially. Like, for instance, we saw the case against Newsom and the Catholic Archdiocese case against Cuomo when he was in office. You saw those cases, and the Supreme Court ruled in the favor of the plaintiffs. So that gave me hope that, oh, look, they're actually taking these emergency appeals and they're ruling in favor of religious liberty. So this Supreme Court, I think, is very, very favorable to religious liberty, which is why I've said those religious liberty cases, that's why we focus most of our attention on those religious exemption cases.
Yeah.
Because I think those have the best chance of actually getting taken up by the Supreme Court and us actually winning. I know there's a lot of other arguments about the science, the vaccine ingredients, and FDA approval. I don't think you're getting those cases to the Supreme Court, and I don't think you're winning them, even in the lower courts. I think the religious liberty, you've got a very, very strong case. And then people get mad. I know some people say, well, come on, I shouldn't have to have a religion. Shouldn't matter religion. This country, newsflash, was founded on religion. You look at all of our founding documents practically, they all mention God. They all mention our Creator, okay? The Constitution, I mean, you read the Declaration of Independence, especially. You read all of these documents, and, it mentions over and over again God, our Creator, our Creator. So, this is a religious country, whether people like it or not. It is. So that's what we have a long-standing jurisprudence. People say, the Americans with Disabilities Act. So if you're claiming a medical exemption and you get denied and you say that's disability discrimination, the Americans with Disabilities Act has only been around since 1990. That's only 31 years. Religious liberty in this country has been around since the founding of the country, going back to the 18th century. So you've got well over 200 years of jurisprudence on religious liberty and in defense of religious liberty, much of it. So we have a much larger body of case law and a much, much, much stronger case to build around religious liberty. Whether people like it or not, that's the best route to go. That's how we're going to win. And I mean, if people don't have religion, have religious beliefs, that's their own choice. This is America, but I'm just telling you, legally speaking, that's going to give you the most standing, give you the best chance of a victory in court, in my opinion.
So one last question before you go, because I know you got to leave, but I got a person on here asking a question about with the religious exemption. She says, my daughter is kicked out of school because she had a 2014 religious exemption. She's out in 10 days, and she's about to get arrested. She goes on to say they won't let her in until she is fully vaccinated. Where do I go for help? She says that it was filed before 2015 and it was not acknowledged. And I've heard a few of these cases, Brian. This is a pretty strong case.
I think I know who this is because she reached out to us as well. That's going to have to be something you're going to have to take up, obviously, privately, if you want to get a private attorney involved for your particular case. We don't have the resources right now to take that on, unfortunately. We've already filed a lawsuit against the religious exemption repeal, period. We think new exemptions should be allowed right now. If you write one today and get it acknowledged per the statute or whatever, you should be able to hand it into your school and have your child be exempted today, in our opinion, which is why we filed a lawsuit against the whole thing and saying it's illegal. So we've already spent quite a bit of a substantial amount of money on the religious exemption lawsuit to fight the whole law, period. We don't have the funds to be pouring into individual parent cases. You could try to find an attorney on your own to take it up. I think it's going to be very tough, unfortunately. because if it wasn't properly notarized, even though the school didn't tell you, I know that's her contention, is the school didn't say that it was improper. The school didn't tell me I had to get it fixed. They didn't alert me. It's not really the way the law works. The way the law works is there's an old saying that ignorance of the law is no excuse. And so they're not going to give you a pass, unfortunately, on that to say, well, I didn't know that I had to have it filled out this way or signed this way. It's not necessarily the schools, under the law. I'm not saying I agree with this. I think they should have told you about it, is my opinion. But there's no law that says they have to. It's not the school's legal responsibility to say, hey, look, this is wrong. You got to correct it. You got to spend a new one before this new law passes. They don't have to do that. So, but how would you have known, right? So her point is probably, how would I know, though, if no one brought it to my attention? They expect you. There's this expectation in the law, and some may call it a legal fiction, but there's this expectation that everybody is aware of the statutes, or needs to be aware of the statutes, need to be researching and reading the statutes. Listen, most people aren't lawyers and judges and lawmakers. Most people don't understand half of what's in there. A lot of lawyers have trouble understanding some of these statutes. Okay, I'll admit there's ones that I have to scratch my head and do my research on and figure out what they mean and talk to other lawyers about it, because some of these are very, very difficult to read and decipher, even someone who has legal training. Okay, so I get it, and I sympathize with her, and I think it's horrible what she's going through. Unfortunately, my organization is not going to be able to, our organization is not going to be able to take it on, because we have so many people with these individual disputes. For instance, people reaching out against mask mandates. Oh, my Board of Ed just did this. All across the country where masks aren't necessarily mandated statewide, but the boards of ed are voting. There was an email like that just today I was looking at, and I have to say, I'm sorry, I can't fight a local mask mandate, out in Idaho or something. I just can't do that. We can't have our attorneys to go into these school board meetings all over the country and fighting these things, these local school boards. That's going to be done individually. You're going to have to retain your own attorney. We're fighting big picture things. So we're fighting lawsuits against the state, lawsuits against these huge companies, because since we have such limited funds, we feel that will have the biggest impact. If we win one battle against some school district out in Iowa or something, people aren't going to really care. That's not going to cause a ripple effect where everyone in the state and everyone in the whole Midwest is going to stop mask mandates. That's not going to work. But if we win a victory against the whole state, if we win a victory against some huge company, one of these huge airlines or one of these huge entertainment companies that I mentioned, some film company or something, or some Major League Baseball team, we win a huge lawsuit against that, that's going to send shockwaves all across the country, and employers large and small will take note and said, well, we better reconsider what we're doing to our employees here. Those are the kind of cases we have to take on. We have to be strategic about this. If we had all the money in the world and it didn't matter, we could just throw money at all these cases, all right, then maybe we'd consider taking on some of these smaller cases. But when you have a small budget, you have to be very discreet and say, okay, I'm going to put some money here, let's win some big battles and stop this all across the country. That's our strategy. That's what we're doing right now. If you support our mission, I said I was going to mention it at the end, Jen. I'm going to mention it one more time. Go to wethepatriotsusa.org, commit to 10, tell all of your family and friends to do the same, and share it on social media. Not just the big censorship platforms like Facebook and Twitter, but Telegram, Gab, whatever alternative platforms you're on. Share. Go to Instagram. Go to we have a TikTok account now. We have We The Patriots TikTok, which is managed by our wonderful volunteer Jill, who's one of the nursing students we helped out. That's another case we had, CCSU nursing student that we were able to get an exemption for, and also for her clinical. She still has a little bit of a battle at one of the clinical sites, but we were able to overturn their decision. They originally denied her, so we got a CCSU nursing student to help, and Kendall worked very closely with her. Kendall's another one of our volunteers. She manages our Instagram account. So we have people, we do have volunteers managing these accounts. Go to all those accounts, follow them, follow our Telegram channel. If you haven't already, the We The Patriots USA, my business partner Dawn does a great job managing most of the content in there. She posts a ton of content in there from all over the internet. She finds, I don't know how she finds this stuff, but she's like, there's hundreds of articles a day in there. I mean, like really, really good content too. Studies and news from around the world, what's going on in Germany, what's going on in Australia. I mean, she's on top, Israel. She's on top of everything, and she's posting it in there. And we also had the latest breaking news from Project Veritas we posted in there from that wonderful organization that's doing great work as well. So make sure you follow us on Telegram. It's We The Patriots USA on Telegram, or if you want to type it in your browser, it's t.me/We The Patriots USA. But again, the biggest thing, everybody, is funding, even if it's only a tiny little bit, and it's only $10 a month. That's going to go a long way if we have thousands of people doing it. So we really appreciate your support. And I appreciate you, Jay, for giving me the time to come on and speak about everything that we're doing. And just hopefully this was somewhat informative to your audience as well, about what can be done, what's maybe legal, not legal. None of this is official legal advice. I always have to say that. But I do like to sort of share my perspective from the front lines, because I mean, it's heartbreaking, some of the stories I'm hearing. I'm hearing people, I got a call just yesterday, I'll close with this. She's a nurse here in Connecticut. I won't say where she works because I don't want to get her in trouble, and we're still exploring litigation for her. This is terrible. She has multiple heart issues. I'll just say that. I'm not going to talk about her specific medical problems. She also, several years ago, had a stroke and had brain surgery. To look at her, you'd think she's a healthy young woman. She's a young lady. She's thin. Looks like she's in good shape. Okay, but she's had some very, very serious heart and brain issues. And she's a nurse, though. She's working and everything. Her cardiologist even said to her, and the cardiologist works at the same hospital where she works as a nurse. She went to her cardiologist, and he looked at her and said, "I don't write exemptions for anyone, but in your case, I'm writing one." Because, doctors are very squeamish about writing these exemptions because their medical license
That's an understatement.
Under fire. That's a whole other thing we can talk about another day. But her doctor doesn't write it for anyone, but because she's so severe, he wrote one. Well, wouldn't you know? She submitted it to that hospital, and that's a note from a doctor at their hospital. She was denied. And she also tried a religious exemption and was denied. So we are exploring legal action against that hospital. And that will be announced once she signs the dotted line and we actually file something, if it gets to that point. We're hoping with we can communicate with their attorneys and get this reversed. But if we have to go into court, you better believe it's going to be advertised. You're going to know about it. It's going to be all over the place. And I hate to do that. But again, that's one of those big cases, though. It's against a hospital that's fairly well known, and people will know, if this happens. And this is it's a heartbreaking story. We just, everybody's suffering right now in some way. All right, everybody is. There's nobody that calls me that's not suffering, that just has it easy, and it's just, everything's perfect in their life. Everybody's got pressure. They're about to lose their job. They might lose their job. They're going to get kicked out of school. But when you hear stories like that, it's just truly heartbreaking. And other people who are, calling up, and, one lady called me. She was pregnant, and they're forcing her to take it, and then finally got them to accept it. But they said, okay, but as soon as your maternity leave is over, you have to get both shots. So, that's not a great route to go either, because these people, even though, number one, she's still going to be maybe breastfeeding even after that time, and we don't know what this
Their
shot could
own
be.
literature says they don't know. Read the package insert in a letter to the FDA. It says it in black and white. This is criminal.
Right. To be this was not studied on pregnant women, all right, and breastfeeding women. So we don't know what effect that's going to have on the baby or on the woman. It hasn't been studied thoroughly on anyone. It hasn't been studied on people, like you and I. It hasn't been studied on children. It hasn't really been thoroughly tested or studied on anyone. The experiment's going on right now in society. That's what's happening. It's unfolding before our eyes. And guess what? The results aren't good. The preliminary data that's coming in is not good. It's not, I would be, it's the last thing I would do, honestly. I would lose everything before I'd take this. That's just me personally. I would lose my job, lose my house. I'd lose all of it before I take this in my arm, because to me, it's a choice between that, and violating my faith, my sincerely held religious beliefs, violating my God, disobeying my God, first and foremost, but then also taking an incredible risk with my life, which God gave me. But, I have a very strong religious objection to this as well. That's why I mentioned that first. I have a very strong opposition to how these vaccines were made, these shots, I should say, were made. And a lot of people out there do as well, and I have other reasons that I'm strongly opposed on religious grounds as well. And these are our sincere beliefs. We're not all just making this up just to get out of it. We we don't want to, defy our faith. We don't want to defy our God. That's an important thing. So anyway, again, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. And, I'd be happy to come back on anytime to talk about other further updates. And subscribe, if you're not already, to our email list at wethepatriotsusa.org, because we send out, every time we file a major lawsuit, we send out an email blast, and we update you and tell you what the lawsuit's about and what we've done. So if you want to stay up to date, just sign up for the form. I don't know if you're on our email list, Jay, but if you're not, go to wethepatriotsusa.org and sign up for the email so you'll get the email alerts.
All right. Thank you so much, Brian, for taking out the time and talking with me. I appreciate all that you guys are doing. And it's a big fight. It's a husband calling. It's a big fight, and it's just a lot. So it's gonna take a tremendous effort on so many levels. So thank you for all your work. I appreciate that.
You're very welcome, and thanks again for having me on. Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you so much.
All right.
So guys, on that note, I just want to encourage you to not give up faith. Okay, it's really ugly out there. I agree with you. Don't give up faith. And one of the things I'm thinking about after talking with Brian is maybe we need to crowdsource stuff. I think there's enough people out there to crowdsource legal cases, potentially. And we got to come up with creative ways, because We The Patriots USA, that's one organization. They're doing a lot of great work, and that's wonderful. But we can't put all our eggs in any one basket, so we have to strategize and come up with numerous plans. That's my opinion. And I think that if you have cases and things are happening, maybe thinking about writing a really good crowdsource campaign and something to that effect, where we could get people together to raise money to sue these bastards. And I'm very curious what Brian was saying about the federal level with Governor Lamont. Now, I've written that article. I wrote a very long article that just gets in really deep, because people will say, oh, that's fake information, or how do you know? And I felt like I had to write a really deep article on that. And you can find that on my website. I'm going to put this up here for you guys. So you can find that on my website at J Cherry Presents. I also have some recent Yale leaks. I'll be posting those also tomorrow. I have another Yale leak that I'm going to be posting. But I do have the Lamont expose on my website. And I seriously think that one of the core problems here in the state of Connecticut is the incredible amount of corruption, and that we need to address this. That to not address this incredible amount of corruption is, we're never going to get anywhere in the state of Connecticut, or anywhere, honestly. And it seems like a David and Goliath type scenario. So I think we get creative, brainstorm together. We don't have all the answers, but we also have a tremendous amount of power with each of us together to come together to strategize and say, how do we bring this Goliath down? Because we've got Semaphore, we got Oak Healthcare FinTech. That's Annie Huntress Lamont founded that company, okay? Annie Huntress Lamont founded Oak Healthcare FinTech. Semaphore, Core Informatics, Thermo Scientific, that's all one big thing. So I don't know which thing ate up the other. I think it's all Thermo Fisher Scientific that ate that all up. And so the FDA had said that the tests were producing false positives. That's criminal. So these tests that are producing false positives that are produced by our governor's wife's holding company, because when you have a holding, you're not producing anything. What you're doing is you're an investor. You reap the rewards for what that company, so Semaphore is providing the testing with Thermo Fisher Scientific, who, by the way, is involved with the Chinese, helping to suppress and subjugate the Uyghur population, the minority population in China, minority Muslims. They're known as Uyghurs. They also gypsies. It's always, the minority, right? Don't we see this repeating throughout history all the time? Now we have a new minority. We have this, the unvaccinated here in the state of Connecticut. I think we're pretty split as a country, where we're a minority. And it's a tremendous battle. But Thermo Fisher Scientific, this is in my article that you can find online. It's a long read. Feel free to cut pieces of it up and throw it out there. And just, that's what I wrote it for. I wanted to have this comprehensive article exposing our governor and this systemic, deep corruption. And I wanted the article to go into the depths of how, in the state of Connecticut, do we get to a place where we have this governor who was operating as a king. What I saw come out of the superintendent of my district the other day made me want to vomit. What they're doing to our children makes me want to vomit. My head spins at the level of corruption and seeing this tyranny come down. Do you know that they now have this thing that Lamont is totally restructuring the state of Connecticut? When you call the governor's office, in all my years in the state of Connecticut, calling governors before him, never in a million years have I ever experienced a phone message like I did from Governor Lamont's office. Constituent services. And then when you talk to the aide, you usually get a name, right? Well, now this aide says he doesn't have to disclose his name for security purposes. Then, on top of that, you call these legislators, my senator, Norm Needleman, who I'll be nice. Norm Needleman does not return phone calls. Norm Needleman's company, Tower Laboratories, got almost $3 million in PPP loans, and they were forgiven. $3 million, almost. It was like $2,700,000. So it was like just shy of $3 million. Forgiven. He got the loan in April. The loan was forgiven in June 2021. So we got the loan in April 2021. Oh, must be nice. Was it 2020? Sorry, it might have been 2020. It was forgiven in 2021, June. Shipman and Goodwin, which Brian and I discussed as well. Well, they got almost $7 million. Shipman and Goodwin is the force behind the public school systems and Board of Education with the mask mandates, the push for vaccine mandates. These are the corrupted government officials. Matthew Ritter is House Speaker. He is a partner at Shipman and Goodwin. Do you know that Christopher Murphy's father is also a partner at Shipman and Goodwin? Shipman and Goodwin get a federal loan that's forgiven, a PPP loan from the state of Connecticut through the feds for almost $7 million. Senator Norm Needleman company gets a loan for almost $3 million, forgiven. We have had the greatest transfer of wealth in the history of our country under this virus. This is an outrage. This is systemic corruption. This is why we have a Constitution and a Bill of Rights. We are a nation of law, right? Of laws, and not like this giant stack of crazy laws that we see the Congress coming out with now on a daily basis, these wild laws that basically we just need to get rid of all of them and concentrate on the one true law of the land, and that's the Constitution. We have all we need with that, quite honestly. And everything else is a load of garbage. And until we take out the garbage, guys, I really don't know. I really don't know. So that's my rant. I don't want to keep going on because I've had this show going on for a little while. Let's just get creative. Governor Lamont is extremely corrupt. Feel free to go read my article. If you guys want to cut up pieces of it and share it around, please do. On my Telegram channel, share anything I put out there. I put it out there for a reason. Take it, use it, spread it. Somehow, we have got to beat back this monstrosity of corruption in the state of Connecticut. So on that note, ta-ta for now, guys. Stay strong in this crazy clown world we find ourselves in today.